2 Kings 13 and 14. We see Jehoaz reigning as an evil king in Israel. It gets kind of boring to see these kings continuing in sin. It's that way with all humans. Sin may be enticing and even look exciting at first, but then it becomes monotonous and boring. The flesh always demands more. When these people are asked how they're doing, they say, same old stuff, different day. God's judgment comes on his people as they disobey, but he is always ready to forgive and deliver. Elisha became sick with an illness and died. Note this. God is the great physician and all things are possible with him, but he does not always choose to heal. We leave that call to him and he will make it perfectly. A man was buried in the same grave as Elisha, and when his body touched Elisha's bones, he revived and stood up on his feet. Wow. Here's a reminder not to forget God's word through his prophets. God's word is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword. We see civil war continuing between Israel and Judah. Both kingdoms are headed toward exile. John chapter 2, Jesus with his mother and disciples are at a wedding when Mary said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does that have to do with us? My hour has not yet come." Jesus was on the Father's schedule, and maybe his public revealing was not yet a part of this schedule. But note what Mary says to the servants. Whatever he says to you, do it. Now that's some pretty good advice for each one of us. We have our own ideas about what ought to happen and when, but the best thing we can do is submit to the will of the Lord and do whatever he says. Jesus had the servants fill water pots with water, and he turned it into wine. The head waiter remarked that the bridegroom had saved the best for last. Jesus himself is the bridegroom, and he, who is the fulfillment of all things, is God's revelation to us in these last days. And God has most definitely saved the best for last. This is the beginning of Jesus' signs, the manifestation of his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Are you a disciple, a learner, a follower, and do you believe in him? Next, we see Jesus going to Jerusalem for the Passover. He entered the temple with a scourge of cords and drove out the money changers and the animals, overturning their tables. He said, "Take these things away. Stop making my Father's house a place of business." We come together to worship our God, to pray to him, to learn from his word, and to fellowship around the person of Christ, not to rip people off, do business, and make money. The word of our day is tolerate. Notice that Jesus does not tolerate this. And there are some things that we should not tolerate either. I have to think that Jesus would respond the same way to today's apostate church, the social clubs that do not know God's word, much less follow it. When asked by the Jews by what authority Jesus did this, he said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." They thought he was talking about the actual temple, but he was talking about his body, his resurrection. He was saying, "I will show you that I do this with the authority of God, because I am God, and I'll prove it by rising from the dead."